Story 1. Jealous brother hooked up with my fiancée right after our engagement, so I snitched to the whole family, and now they're being cut off. I, 23M, recently got engaged and broke my engagement off in a span of 2 weeks. My fiancée, Riley, 23F, hooked up with my older brother, Adam, 27M, on the night after our engagement. My disgusting brother tried to rub it in my face to make me feel bad. Riley and I had been together for almost 3 years, but she threw it all away for my brother on the night of our engagement. She told me she was thrilled to be marrying me, but went back on her word the very next day when she hooked up with my brother. I was very upset about it and broke things off through text and blocked her. I also changed the locks on my house so she wouldn't be able to come back home. Riley and I had been living together for the past year, and it had been going really well, so I thought that it was the right time to propose. I never thought that she would end up betraying me for Adam of all people, because she knows that he and I have an intense rivalry and don't get along at all. My dad passed away when I was a baby in an accident, and I barely have any memories of him. Adam had spent some time with him at least, but I have no recollection of what he was like. Adam never liked me, and growing up he was my biggest enemy. He was always a bully, and my mother, being a single mom, didn't really have time to deal with our sibling rivalry because she had more important things on her mind, like paying the bills and making sure there's food on the table every day. Our uncle, my dad's brother, visited a lot and tried to help out as much as he could. My mother kept in touch with my father's family even after his demise. For their sake, because they'd already lost their son. They didn't need to lose their grandkids too. My uncle was pretty much the only father figure I've ever known, and he still is my go-to person. For Adam, it was my mother. My mother didn't play favorites, but it was very apparent that if she had to pick one, it would be Adam. And that made our sibling rivalry even more intense because I wanted to be my mother's favorite as well. Unfortunately, I was always a bit of a loser growing up. I wasn't good at sports, and I was mediocre at best when it came to academics. I was quite skinny, and I didn't have any such talents that could set me apart, so I was always very insecure about basically everything, and that made it very difficult for me to talk to people, make friends, and be popular. I was a really introverted kid and mostly kept to myself. Adam was quite the opposite. He played sports and was great at it. He wasn't too bad academically either, and he had a very different physique from mine, big and sturdy because of his athletics. Needless to say, being his little brother was even more embarrassing for me because, even though nobody said it to my face, I knew that everybody was constantly comparing me with him and thinking that I was a loser in comparison. With time, I learned to live in his shadow and would just let him walk all over me. My self-esteem really took a hit in my childhood, and I was never able to recover from it. Even until my last day of high school, I barely had any friends, and nobody wanted to talk to me because I just came off as weird. Things only changed for me and started looking up when I graduated and moved to college. I was a new person there, and nobody knew me as Adam's little brother, so I really grew into my own now that I didn't have to deal with Adam's constant bullying and could finally be my own person. I know it sounds cheesy, but I'm so thankful that I was able to go to college out of state where nobody knew me, because I don't think I would have been the person that I am today had it not been for that experience, and I have my uncle to thank for it because he was the one who paid for me to go to college. My mother had told me that she wouldn't be able to afford to send me to college so far away and wanted me to pick a location closer to home, within our city if possible, but I had my mind set, and my uncle offered to cover me and stepped up. I made a lot of friends there and graduated at the top of my class. My mother and uncle attended my graduation ceremony, but Adam didn't, even though I'd been present at his. After moving out, Adam and I didn't really keep in touch for obvious reasons. He hated me for no reason, and I hated him because he made my childhood and teen years a total nightmare. I was glad to be rid of him, and we only met on the holidays or whenever we would come back home for birthdays. It's been years, and that's the arrangement that we stuck to. We didn't consider each other family beyond the confines of our house, but I did console him and send him a message when he lost all his money a couple of years ago. He'd quit his job and tried to start his own business, but failed miserably, and my uncle and mother had to bail him out since he was neck-deep in debt. He couldn't go back to his old job, so he had to move back into our mother's house for a couple of months until he was back on his feet. Even when he finally did find a job, it wasn't as great as his previous one, but he took it because he wanted to move out of his mom's house since he was well in his 20s, and he felt embarrassed to still live with his mom. This is what my uncle told me, and it was quite upsetting because his life had completely unraveled. I felt bad for him and sent him a message of consolation, but I think he misunderstood it and thought that I was bragging or making fun of him, so he blocked me and ignored me for the next couple of holidays. We weren't chummy when we met, but tried to keep things civil and at least greeted each other, no matter how coldly, but after that message, there was no talking to each other. I would like to say that Adam's life got better, but it didn't. He took the failure of his business really hard, and every time I saw him after that, he seemed worse for the wear. My uncle told me that he had switched jobs 7 to 8 times after that, but didn't seem content with any of them. His clothes got shabbier, and we could physically see the state of his mind reflected in how he acted at family gatherings. He was always either drinking or quietly staring at nothing. I say this from the bottom of my heart, but it really made me feel bad for him when I saw him in that state. I had always hated him growing up, but now it was just very difficult to hate someone who was already going through so much. My uncle always tried to include him in our station, but he didn't seem interested and would always take off early. I had also started bringing Riley to these gatherings after we had been together for a year. She knew about Adam and even seemed concerned about him, but there was not much that we could do. Fast forward to our engagement, which took place 2 weeks ago. Riley and I were at my uncle's house for his birthday dinner. I had asked him first and made sure that he was okay with me proposing to her at his dinner party, and he was, so I went ahead with it. The family would all be there anyway, and my uncle had a beautiful house with a lovely garden, so it was just the perfect place. I had even invited her parents, but they weren't going to show up until after the proposal, so she wouldn't be able to guess what was about to happen. After my uncle had cut the cake and stuff, I took her outside and popped the question. She said yes, and then we went back in to announce it to everyone and celebrate. I did notice that Adam left within minutes of me making the announcement, but I didn't think too much of it because I was quite busy with everybody else that evening, and also he usually does take off from family gatherings quite early, so it wasn't anything out of the blue. Riley and I had a great evening, and then we went back home. She didn't mention anything about Adam or his weird behavior to me after we got back home, which she usually does whenever we go to any family event of mine. We were both really drunk and tired, so I was knocked out as soon as my head hit the pillow, but I did wake up accidentally around 2 o'clock in the morning because I had to use the bathroom. When I woke up, I realized that Riley was still on her phone, and when I asked her who she was talking to, she told me that she was telling a couple of her friends about the engagement. That seemed innocent enough, so I didn't suspect anything and went back to sleep soon after. But 2 days later, while I was at work, I received a bunch of texts from Adam. It was really unexpected because the last time we had a conversation, he had blocked me. It was just screenshots of his conversation with Riley, and in those chats they were planning to get together and hook up, which they did. It started with Adam reaching out to her to congratulate her on the engagement, and she asked him why he wasn't present for the rest of the evening. So he told her that he was just upset about a lot of things and wanted to get out of there while he could because he didn't want to intrude on my happiness. He talked about how we have never been friends, and he felt like it was inappropriate for him to be present on such an occasion for me, so he left. He was making himself look like some sad little puppy who wasn't wanted, but the truth is that I really wouldn't have cared if he stayed for the evening. He only wanted Riley to sympathize with him so it would be easier for him to manipulate her, and that's exactly what happened. She started consoling him and told him that there was somebody out there for him. She also said that I was a great guy, and I didn't mean to rub it in his face, so she apologized on our behalf if he felt bad about what happened. Adam responded by saying that he would never be able to find someone like Riley, so he didn't see the point of even searching. That sly jerk started flirting with her, and she flirted back in kind, and suddenly they were making plans to meet. I know for a fact that she did go over to his house the night after our engagement because she told me that she was going to spend the night at her friend's place to tell her everything about the engagement. On top of that, Adam had also sent me pictures of Riley's clothes on his bed, and that was all that I needed to see. It was a sick and disgusting thing to do, and it really caught me off guard, but I took the rest of the day off and went back home immediately after I received Adam's texts. I was sobbing uncontrollably, but even with tears in my eyes, I decided to get the lock changed and started packing whatever I could lay my hands on, whatever I saw and knew that it belonged to Riley. I put it in a cardboard box, and once I was done, I placed it outside the door. By the time I was done with all of it, it was almost time for Riley to come home. I hadn't seen her since the previous night because she told me that she'd go to work directly from her friend's place. But of course now I know that she went to work from Adam's house. I wanted to break up with her in person, but after a while, I decided that it wasn't worth it because she had cheated on me literally the day after I proposed, and she promised to spend the rest of her life with me. I was very upset, so I decided to end it through text. I sent her a message saying that I knew that she had hooked up with Adam, and I didn't want to be with her anymore. I told her that she disgusted me and said that all her stuff was right outside the door, so she could just grab the box and go because I didn't want to see her. If she had left anything at home, then she could come back later and collect it. I told her that we were over, then sent the message and blocked her. A few minutes after I sent that text, Riley was at my doorstep knocking and begging me to let her in. She was devastated, and I could hear it in her voice. She was begging me to give her a chance to explain herself and kept telling me that she knew she had made a huge mistake, but she just wanted me to hear her out. It went on for about half an hour, and it was incredibly difficult for me to keep my calm and ignore it, but after she had tried everything, right from crying to manipulation and back to begging, she finally left. Just to be on the safe side, I still didn't open the door for about an hour after the begging stopped, to make sure that she still wasn't waiting outside. Once I was sure she was gone, I ordered some takeout, had dinner, and then tried to go to sleep, but I was so upset that I couldn't bring myself to close my eyes. I wanted to do something big to get back at Adam and really teach him a lesson, but I couldn't think of anything. I kept brainstorming on my own for a while, and when nothing came to me, I decided to take the easiest way out and just forwarded those screenshots to everybody in the family, saying, "This is what my dear brother Adam did to me." And then I turned my phone off and went to sleep. I honestly didn't have a plan in mind, and I didn't even set forth any conditions to my relatives, so whatever they did, it was of their own volition, and I had absolutely no part to play in it. Everybody in the family responded with sympathy and told me that they had blocked him and were going to cut him off from everywhere. Everybody was in shock after they got to know what Adam had done to me and reached out to console me, except for my mom. She didn't talk to me in the first couple of days after I sent everybody that message, but she visited me a few days later, and she looked very upset. I knew that she wasn't going to sit and console me like the others. I was right because she had visited me to talk to me about my actions. She told me that she could understand that I was upset with Adam for whatever he did, and rightfully so, but even then, I should have refrained from publicizing the incident. Her reason was that Adam was already suffering so much because he was a grown man living hand to mouth with a failed business and no prospects in his love life either. He would have a few flings here and there, but there was nothing permanent, and it was especially sad because he was a really promising young man when he was younger, so nobody could have imagined that he would turn out to be so unsuccessful and sad. On the other hand, nobody could have expected me to be as successful as I am today, be it in my line of work or my relationships. My mom believed that Adam did this out of jealousy, which I already knew. For context, I work in an architecture firm and have a high-paying job. I worked really hard to get where I am now, and if Adam had researched his business properly instead of rushing into it headfirst, then it wouldn't have failed and he wouldn't be earning less than half of what I make. But coming back to the point, while my mother was telling me all this, it almost felt like she was trying to justify what he did. So I interrupted her and asked her if she was actually trying to make it seem okay for Adam to hook up with my fiancée just the night after we got engaged, simply because his life was sad and pathetic. She took a minute, and then she said that it wasn't okay. But I needed to understand where he was coming from and be a little sympathetic and forgiving. She went on to tell me that the family cutting ties with Adam had hit him really hard, and he was miserable. The family get-togethers were the only thing that he had going on for him because he felt embarrassed to be around his friends, who were a lot more successful than he was, so he didn't keep in touch with them, and family was all that he had. I was happy about that, and I didn't really care that he was miserable because he had broken up with me and Riley, so he deserved this, and I had no sympathy to spare for him. But my mother believed that I should be the bigger person and talk to everyone to convince them somehow to give him a chance. Not only that, she also wanted me to reach out to him and clear the air. I told her that I was not doing any of it, and she was crazy to even expect that I would reach out to the person who ruined my relationship on purpose. I really just snapped at her. I told her that I knew she had favorites, even though she didn't really make it evident, but she didn't have to rub it in my face and make me feel so awful. I told her that if I had done the same thing to Adam, then she wouldn't have been trying to justify it and make it look like no big deal. she probably would have been all up in arms about it, and I knew that for a fact. She tried to deny it and we started arguing. It turned into a big fight where she got very upset and huffy. She left the house after saying that she wouldn't talk to me until I reached out to Adam and tried to sort things out with him. It's been a couple of days since then, and my relatives have been checking in on me. Mostly it's my uncle who has been texting with me daily. Riley also sends me messages from time to time, hoping to win me back or at least have a conversation with me, but I haven't replied to her. I haven't blocked her yet either, but I know that I have to, and I will eventually. The only person that I haven't heard from after our big fight is my mother, and I really feel bad about it. I already mentioned that I knew my brother was her favorite because they always seemed to have some inexplicable bond, even when I was a kid, but my mom never played favorites, that's up until now at least. I just feel very confused about what she said. I am content with my life right now, and it's not like I'm depressed or whatever, but I do want my mother in my life, but I don't think I agree with her opinion on the whole Adam and Riley situation. So what do you guys think? I'd appreciate for sending my family proof of my brother and my fiancé cheating on me. Update 1. The people have spoken and the people have been hurt. Thank you so much for all the comments on the original post and for reading through it so patiently. I'm glad that so many of you had great advice for me on what to do next and reassured me that I wasn't in the wrong, because my mother saying all that really made me feel that I was somehow out of line for what I did. But evidently that's not the case, and I have no need to reach out to anybody. I also spoke to my uncle about what my mom said. I hadn't told anybody earlier because this was kind of personal and I didn't want to discuss this with other people, but my uncle is family, and I felt considerably better after speaking to him. He told me that he had also noticed my mother always favored Adam over me. It wasn't always very obvious, but it was definitely there, and anybody with a brain could tell that she had a favorite, and it wasn't me. He told me that he really felt awful about what happened with me because he knew how strongly I felt for Riley, and yet she didn't think twice before hooking up with Adam in spite of knowing about our relationship. It was upsetting, but there was not much that I could do. When I was honestly kind of okay since I like to think that I dodged a bullet there. I haven't moved on from her entirely, but I know I'll get there. That's really not what I'm worried about, however. My relationship with my mother is something that I don't want to lose, but if she acts like this and victimizes Adam, then I don't see a way for us to get along or reconcile. My uncle thinks that I should just give up on it. He said that he knows my mother, and he also knows that she isn't going to back down if she believes that she is right. He told me that I shouldn't hold out hope that she might come around and talk to me because it's quite unlikely since she has been visiting Adam almost every day ever since our family cut him off. It hurt that she was still going out of her way to look after him, even though I was the one who actually lost a relationship because of him, and quite an important one at that. But I also understand that I can't help the situation, and it is what it is. That's something my uncle taught me, to just accept things and let it go, and I guess that's what I have to do. I tried arguing with my mother and making her see sense, but she wasn't interested in the truth. She was only interested in making sure that Adam had all the support that he needed. Fine by me, I guess. Update 2. So it has been almost 2 weeks since I broke up with Riley, and she had been texting me almost every other day for about a week after we broke up. But then she just stopped, probably after she realized that begging me to take her back wasn't going to work. And I don't want to speak to her or hear her side of the story. I don't even know why she thought explaining her side would make it any better because, as far as I'm concerned, nothing excuses cheating, and that's just how it is. But she reached out to me yesterday and told me that she wanted to come by and collect some of the things that had been left behind. That's when I finally replied because now we were getting down to business, and instead of our conversations just being her begging me to talk to her and me ignoring all those texts, I told her that she could come by today because I was taking a day off anyway, and might as well get this over with. So she dropped by around noon, and I could tell that she was really upset. She looked worse for the wear and didn't look me in the eye even once for the entire time that she was there. I didn't say anything to her either. After I opened the door and let her in, there was silence in the house while she packed her things, and I sat on the couch in the living room and avoided looking at her. Once she was done packing, she told me that she was going to leave, and even though I had a lot to say to her, I just said goodbye and then went back to my phone. She didn't deserve anything more than that, and after that, she was just gone for good. It feels weird, but in a nice way, because this just means that I don't ever have to talk to her or be reminded of her by things around the house or her messages. I blocked her a few minutes after she left and decided to celebrate by watching our favorite movie on my own. Still no word from my mother, but with time, it's becoming easier for me to come to terms with it. At least now I know for sure that she wouldn't never have taken my side here, simply because I'm not Adam, so whatever I did for her would never be good enough. And honestly, I'm sick of trying. My uncle told me that he also had a fight with her recently while he was trying to defend me, and she didn't like it, so they aren't on speaking terms anymore either. I can't believe that she is willing to sacrifice her relationship with both of us just so she can continue defending Adam, even though she knows that he's a jerk. It just doesn't make any sense to me, but I guess if that's what she wants, then whatever. Update 3. It's been a month since I posted here last, and I can't believe that until a month ago, I was still whining about how my mother doesn't love me. But I'm better now, and I just don't care about what my mother thinks. She is just as delusional and selfish as my brother, and that's probably why they get along so well, because they're both horrible people, and I was quite unfortunate to be related to both of them. But now I have no ties with either of the two, and I am so thankful for it because they don't deserve somebody like me, and neither did Riley. I was always too good for them, and if they couldn't see that, then that's on them. It's their loss all the way. I don't have to feel bad for anything, and that's exactly why I don't feel bad about the fact that nobody from our family talks to them anymore and doesn't invite them to any events. They just have no link to any of us anymore, and I couldn't be happier about it. Riley and I haven't spoken ever since she came back here to collect her things for one last time because I blocked her afterward, and so did most of our common friends after they found out the real reason behind our engagement falling through. But my mother did try to reach out to me a few days ago, and even now, she doesn't think that she needs to apologize to me, which is just insane to even think about. Even in the last conversation that we had, she was still harping on about how Adam is suffering and has been diagnosed with clinical depression. I told her that I could give her a psychotherapist phone number, but nothing else, and I definitely wasn't going to talk to our family members now to make them sympathize with him. Then she started trying to manipulate me by going all emotional and sentimental on me. She was really laying it on thick and said that she had already lost her husband. She didn't want to lose the two most important men in her life now because of some stupid, petty fight over a girl. It was interesting that she saw the fight as stupid and petty because the way I remember it, the fight was not over some girl. It was over my fiancé, and it was neither stupid nor petty because Adam had decided to hook up with Riley on purpose, all because he wanted to make me feel bad. So I think I was perfectly within reason to be mad at him and never want to speak to him again. As for the rest of our family, I hadn't coerced them into doing anything. They cut Adam and my mother off because of their own behavior, and I had absolutely nothing to do with that. So if they want to blame somebody, they should blame themselves. This is what I told my mother before blocking her. Now I can finally move on with my life, and they can go to hell for all I care. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. My best friends are divorcing, and it is causing issues in our marriage. My 40-year-old F best friend, 38-year-old F, is going through a divorce with her husband, 44-year-old M. We'll call them Alice and Ken. My husband, 37, and I have been together for 10 years, and I've always been close with Ken and Alice. Alice and I have been friends since long before we met either of our partners. My husband and Ken have become good friends over the years, and they hang out just the two of them semi-frequently. About a month ago, Ken told Alice he wanted a divorce. She told me that for the last 6 months, they've been having issues. According to her, the problems stem from Ken's issues with her job. 3 years ago, she accepted a promotion at her company. The promotion required her to travel 3 to 4 months out of the year, and she works a lot even when she isn't on assignment. She's always been insanely ambitious and successful. I think it's important to note that Ken works full-time as a tradesman. He works out of his shop, metal work on their property, and stays pretty busy. She makes more than he does, but I wouldn't call her the breadwinner. Alice has a daughter, 12-year-old F, from a previous relationship. The bio dad isn't in the picture, and Ken has been her dad since she was 4. According to her, Ken has been asking her to either take a position that requires fewer hours in responsibility or find a new job that doesn't require any travel. She's been telling him she will but has been putting it off, thinking he'd drop it eventually. This has been going on for a while. She didn't tell me how long exactly. It all came to a head when she extended a business trip while on the trip and forgot about a family vacation they had planned for when she got back. She didn't consult him about extending her business trip before agreeing to it. She apologized and promised to make it up to him and their daughter. She said she didn't have a choice when it came to extending the business trip. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. Ken was upset but didn't blow up when she got home, though his stuff was packed, and he'd moved most of his shop and tools into storage. He hadn't told her any of this and was acting like everything was fine until this point. She called me and was crushed. She kept saying, "I didn't think he'd do it," over and over. What was at first sadness on her end quickly became resentment or anger when Ken made it clear there was no getting back together. Ken and my husband were in contact during this whole ordeal. The husband knew they were having issues but didn't know the extent of them until after Ken left Alice. Ken told my husband that Alice had been checked out of the relationship ever since she took the new position. They don't do anything as a family anymore. He doesn't make time for them to talk when she travels. I guess he asked her for some nudes and sexy dirty talk a few times, and she rejected him but had time to go out with coworkers. They don't have sex anymore. He'd voiced these issues numerous times, and she blew him off. According to Ken, everything became much worse after a particular incident that made it hard to even type without cringing. Ken and Alice had been separated for about 3 weeks. Their daughter was bouncing back and forth between Ken's apartment and their old home that Alice was staying in. It was Ken's weekend with their daughter. He brings her back on Sunday evenings. Well, Alice went on a bender and literally forgot what day it was. She was so messed up. This isn't like her. She thought it was Saturday. It was Sunday. Ken shows up with their daughter and walks in on a shit show. Alice had 2 younger men there. They were drunk and in the hot tub. They weren't in the act, but it was clear what was going on. She started freaking out, calling Ken names, screaming that it wasn't Sunday yet. Ken kept their daughter in his truck so she didn't see the worst of it. They left the next day. She had no idea what had happened. She had texted Ken horrible things while she was messed up. I only saw them because Ken sent my husband screenshots. I won't say word for word what they said, but it was really personal. Since this, Ken is going nuclear. He wants the house. He wants custody. He adopted their daughter long ago. He wants child support. He's taking her to the cleaners, as they say. I know this isn't Alice. She's going through a lot. She needs friends right now, and I'm literally all she has. Her own daughter would rather stay with Ken. I'm not gonna cut my best friend out over this. The issue is my husband wants me to cut her out. He said some really terrible things about her. He's called her a shitty mother. I know she loves her daughter. He's called her a self-absorbed woman. He says he doesn't want me to get sucked into her drama and behavior. When I insist she'll turn it around and she just needs help right now, he shuts it down, saying this is who she really is, and he doesn't know why I want to associate with people like her. I know a lot of this is just things that Ken has told him and he's defending his buddy. I'm not excusing her behavior, but I think it's unreasonable for him to want me to cut my best friend out. She asked me to go out with her a few times, and I went once without telling my husband because I knew what he'd say. I just wanted to talk to her in person. After I told him we would meet up, he went ballistic and repeated that if I didn't cut her out, we'd have issues too. Any advice on navigating this would be appreciated. Edit. I made this post on my lunch break on mobile. Now the responses are overwhelming and eye-opening. I've seen a recurring sentiment that I haven't said anything positive about Alice. I reread my post and realized you're correct, so I'll just say this. She wasn't always this way, and her behavior, drinking excessively, shrugging off family, being work-obsessed, is relatively new. She used to be a good mother. We used to have fun family outings. She and Ken were happy when she took the promotion. All that changed gradually until this shit show happened. Maybe I'm blinded by her behavior now because I know once upon a time she wasn't this person. I plan on talking to her tonight and having an intervention, and I will let my husband know. Thank you for your responses, the good and the bad. Update 1. It wouldn't let me post an update without mentioning the ages and relationships again. So the people involved are me, 40-year-old F, my husband, 37-year-old M, married for 10 years, my best friend Alice, 38-year-old F, and her husband Ken, 44-year-old, married for roughly 8 years. This is not a happy update. Alice and I made plans to get together on Saturday morning. I was going to get us coffee and help her with a few things around her house before she left for a business trip on Monday. My intention was to tell her that we, her family and mine, are worried about her, and we all want to see her happy, but her behavior was worrying us. I was hoping we'd have a heart-to-heart. I was hoping I'd see my friend again. I was hoping she'd agree to see a therapist. I was hoping she'd take a step in the right direction. None of that happened. She was combative from the second I showed up at her place. It was almost like she knew what my intentions were before I even said anything. When I told her I was worried about her, she said she was fine and had just been blowing off steam and having some fun. She said she works hard and can do whatever she wants now that Ken has left her. She talked about how ungrateful Ken has been over the years for all her hard work and everything she's paid for and done for him. It made me cringe, but I bit my tongue. For the record, Ken is a hardworking guy who didn't need her money. He was the breadwinner when they first got together. She makes quite a bit more than him now, but in no way was he dependent on her. Some of you pointed out that it was likely that Alice was cheating on Ken. I asked her, and she got extremely defensive. She gave me the whole, "I can't believe you'd even ask me that," attitude. I reminded her about the hot tub incident and the optics of it all. She blew it off and swore she'd never cheated. I asked who the guys were. It turns out they were interns at her company. When I asked how old they were, she simply said they were legal. The way she said it made me wonder if that's how dirty old men talk about younger women. It was gross. Whether or not she was cheating before the breakup, I don't know. I don't really know anything about this woman anymore. Here's where things took an unexpected turn. As we chatted, she was packing for her business trip. I asked her where she was going this time. She said Dallas. I didn't think anything of it. She's gone to Dallas for business dozens of times. What did strike me as odd was what she was packing. Long pants, sweatshirts, a beanie, jackets, hiking boots. It was all fall attire and not what she'd be wearing in Dallas this time of year. I don't think I even saw her pack work clothes. But the weirdest thing was a random Seattle Mariners jersey. She doesn't follow baseball. She never has. I thought about saying something but kept my questions to myself. It was all just, I felt like she was preoccupied with packing, and her daughter was coming over soon, so I decided to head out. We hugged. I told her I loved her and wanted her to be happy. I told her I hope she considers seeing a therapist when she gets back. She said, "I'll think about it." Things did seem to end on a positive note. When I got home, Hobby and I were talking about how things went, and I told him about the clothes she was packing in, the random Seattle Mariners jersey. He thought it was odd too, but other than it just being odd, we didn't think anything of it at the time. But then Hubby went full internet detective, and guess who lives in Seattle and has a Facebook profile picture of himself at a Mariners game? Her daughter's biological father. My heart sank when I checked the Mariners schedule. They do have home games next week. I called her immediately and asked her if she was really going to Dallas. She responded, "Yeah, why?" I asked if she was sure she wasn't going to see X name in Seattle. She got quiet. There was probably a full minute of silence. I told her she better not lie to me, and that I'd find out. She came clean. She said she had gotten in contact with him right after Ken left her, and they'd been talking more and more. She said he was a different man now and has turned his life around. I didn't talk about her baby daddy in the last post because it wasn't relevant, but just know that this man is a piece of garbage. He cheated on her while she was pregnant and kicked her out when she confronted him. He'd slap her around, call her terrible names. This guy said he wanted nothing to do with their child either. I flew to Seattle, picked her up, and brought her home. She lived with me for a bit. She met Ken shortly after having her daughter, and within a year of dating, they moved in together. I told her that of all the shit she's pulled recently, this was by far the worst thing she could do. I told her I was disappointed in her. I couldn't believe she would ever speak to that man after what he did to her and how he treated her. She kept saying it was years ago, and she's changed, and he wants to meet his daughter one day. I started screaming and yelling into the phone so loudly that I think I blew out my voice. I told her I was done with her. I told her if she gets on that plane to Seattle, not to bother contacting me ever again. I hung up on her. She called back and texted once, but I ignored it. I didn't have the energy for her anymore. I just sat on the couch crying all night while my husband held me. He didn't rub it in. He didn't give me an attitude. He just let me cry and told me he was sorry. Alice texted me this morning. She said she's sorry for lying to me, but she's a big girl now and can look after herself. I asked her if she's still going to Seattle, and she said yes. I blocked her. It's over. I told Ken everything. He was upset but not surprised. He said he knew how close Alice and I were, and he was sorry I'd lost my friend. I told him I was sorry he'd lost his wife. You guys were right. I feel like an idiot. Maybe it's a little selfish of me, but I feel betrayed. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I'm 33 years old, so a little while back, I went to my cousin's wedding. Weddings are supposed to be fun, full of dancing, eating, and celebrating. But at the after party, things got a bit awkward because of my parents. Me and my folks, we don't really get along. It's like trying to mix oil and water. We just don't mix well, so we usually try to keep our distance and not talk much. Now, let me tell you about my brother, Jack. He's 29, and ever since we were kids, he's been the star of the family, the kind of kid who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. He asked for a new video game, bam, he got it. Meanwhile, I'd be lucky to get a pat on the back. As we got older, this whole Jack can do no wrong thing didn't really change. Actually, it got worse. He turned into this super entitled guy who thinks the world owes him everything. Jack and I were not exactly what you'd call close. I decided a while back that I had enough of how my parents were treating me compared to him, especially when they dropped the bomb that they wouldn't pay for my college. That was a huge deal for me. I had to figure out everything on my own, scraping together scholarships, loans, you name it. Fast forward to now, and things are kind of okay. I mean, we're not throwing pies at each other's faces at family gatherings or anything. We keep it civil, a nod here, a hey there, but that's about it. Jack and I, we basically act like the other doesn't exist, which, to be honest, I'm cool with. I don't really want anything to do with him. The dude's a grown man, still living at home, acting like he's in high school. Weekends for him are all about video games, hanging out online, and drinking more beer than you'd find at a frat party. So yeah, that's the gist of it. Going to that wedding and dealing with all this family drama felt more like dodging landmines than celebrating. But hey, that's family for you, right? Continuing from the wedding scene, so there I was, just chilling with some relatives, sipping on something nice and talking about whatever comes to mind after the wedding. It's all pretty standard stuff, right? Out of the blue, my family decides to pull up a chair and join in. Now, this was odd because, let's be honest, we usually do our best to stay out of each other's way. But hey, it's a wedding, everyone's feeling good, so I didn't make a big deal out of it. We're all there. The conversation is bouncing around. And suddenly, it's like I'm under the spotlight. My dad, out of nowhere, decides to ask about my job. Now, here's the thing, I work in banking and I recently got bumped up the ladder, got a nice raise to boot. I went out with my friends last weekend to celebrate, but that's my thing, you know? My family usually doesn't get into my business about work and stuff, so I kept it short and sweet, told him yeah, it's going pretty good, and tried to leave it at that. But nope, my parents weren't about to let it slide just yet. My mom jumps in with this vibe like she's expecting me to spill the beans on something big, asking if there's anything else I might want to share with the family. Honestly, it felt a bit like being back in high school where your parents are trying to dig into your life, but you're like, chill, I got this. It was one of those moments where you're caught off guard but got to keep it cool, especially with everyone listening in. So there I was, trying to keep things light, when my dad suddenly drops the bomb that he knows all about my promotion and raise. That caught me off guard, not gonna lie. With all my relatives around, the last thing I wanted was to dive into my financial business. It felt way too personal, especially with an audience. I tried to brush it off, saying it was nobody's business, and made a move to escape to the bathroom. Honestly, I just wanted to bail on the whole awkward situation, but then my dad wasn't having any of it. He told me to sit back down, insisting we hash this out like family. That really got under my skin because, to me, we hadn't been much of a family for a long time. It felt like they didn't see me as part of the family either, except for moments like this when they apparently needed something. And true to form, my dad laid it on thick, accusing me of being ungrateful and selfish. He said that after all the years they spent raising me, giving me everything I wanted as a kid, now that they were nearing retirement, I was turning my back on them. The whole table went silent. It was like you could hear a pin drop. Relatives started finding sudden interest in their phones or the patterns on the floor, clearly signaling this was a family drama they wanted no part in. It was painfully obvious my parents were trying to guilt-trip me into opening my wallet for them. The real kicker, I knew exactly why they were suddenly so interested in my finances. So here's the deal with my brother. He's basically living the life, but on my parents' dime. The guy doesn't have a job, but that doesn't stop him from living it up like he's some kind of celebrity. We're talking clubbing, hitting bars with his friends nearly every weekend, and let's not even start on his obsession with the latest tech. He's always got to have the newest gadgets because he thinks he's some tech wizard or something. This lifestyle, as you can guess, isn't cheap, and with my folks edging closer to retirement, the financial strain is real. They can't keep bankrolling his endless party and tech spree forever. It clicked for me right then and there. They were putting on this whole drama show in front of the family to pressure me into coughing up some cash. The plan? Embarrass me enough so I'd throw money their way to keep appearances up, then use that to keep pampering their favorite son. But I was done playing their game. The embarrassment stung. Sure, but I wasn't about to get bullied into fixing their mess, especially not after how they treated me. They laughed me out of the room when I needed help with college, and now they expected me to open my wallet? No way. In that moment, I decided to give as good as I got. I reminded them right there in front of everyone about how they'd outright refused to help me with my college tuition years back. I wanted them to see that I remembered every detail of how they chose to support one son over the other, hitting them with the truth about how they treated me back in the day. I couldn't help but bring up the painful memory of when they told me they could only afford to send one kid to college, and that kid wasn't going to be me. It was as if the mere suggestion that they helped me with my education was some kind of comedy act to them. To my parents, I was nothing more than a punchline, but now tables have turned. They see me doing well for myself while my brother continues to depend on them, and suddenly, they think it's time for me to contribute to the family. This wasn't about family unity. It was just another scheme to funnel more resources into my brother's bottomless pit of wants. So I laid it all out for them, reminded them how they had never really invested in me beyond what was legally required. They provided me shelter and basic needs until I was 18, but let's be real, they did that because they had to, not out of any sense of parental love or kindness. In the heat of the moment, as I recounted these injustices, my emotions caught up with me. My voice cracked, betraying the hurt that was welling up inside. Before I knew it, I had to make a break for the bathroom. I couldn't let them see me fall apart. I couldn't give them the satisfaction of knowing they'd gotten to me that deeply. It was a tough pill to swallow, confronting the fact that your own parents see your worth only in what you can provide, not in who you are. So after that whole emotional roller coaster, I needed a moment to myself. When I got back from the bathroom, it seemed like the storm had passed. The crowd had scattered, and the spot we were at was empty. Taking that as my cue, I decided to call it a night and head home. I tried my best to push the whole mess to the back of my mind for the next few days. But then my brother comes out of nowhere with a bombshell. Turns out our little showdown at the wedding wasn't just a spectacle for those present. It became the hot topic among our relatives. And here's the kicker. It seems my parents have been playing their own version of keeping up with the Joneses. They had borrowed money from other relatives years ago, claiming it was for both of our tuitions, promising to pay it back in a few years. But here's where it gets juicy. Those years came and went, and not a penny was returned. Whenever these generous relatives reached out hoping to see their loans repaid, my parents played the "we're still struggling" card. In reality, they were doing just fine, except instead of repaying debts, they were splurging on my brother's lavish wants. Learning about this deceit not only shocked me but also made me see the full picture. My parents' plea for financial help wasn't just about enabling my brother's lifestyle. It was also about keeping their own secrets safe. They were trapped in a web of lies, using the money meant for my supposed tuition to cover up their tracks and maintain an illusion of financial hardship. It was a twisted game of appearances, and I was inadvertently caught in the middle. My brother hits me up and tells me that some of our relatives, the ones my parents had borrowed money from a while back, found out the truth because of what I said. These folks were under the impression my parents needed the cash to help pay for both our colleges. So they were super understanding and hadn't asked for their money back, thinking our family was just scraping by. But plot twist, now that they know what's really been going on, they're super mad and have decided to take my parents to court to get their money back. They hadn't done this before because they thought they'd be kicking my parents while they were down. But with the truth out, they're not holding back anymore. Here's where it gets even more soap opera. My brother wants me to go to these relatives and spin them a tale about how I was just talking nonsense at the wedding. He thinks if I say I lied because I was embarrassed about being a bad son, they might drop the lawsuit and give our parents a chance to figure things out. I couldn't believe he was asking me to do that. It sounded like a terrible idea, and I said, no way. But now both my brother and my parents are on my case. They're saying this whole mess is my fault and that I need to fix it. But here's the thing, all I did was tell the truth about my own life. They're the ones who borrowed the money and then didn't pay it back even when they could, and now they want me to lie to get them out of trouble. That doesn't seem fair to me. So am I the jerk for telling my relatives the truth about how my parents hadn't paid for me to go to college? Update 1. So after all the drama with my brother asking me to tell a fib to help out my parents, which I was totally not cool with, I decided to take a big step. I hit the block button on my brother. Yep, just like that, he was out of my online world. Then I got this idea. Why not share everything that's been happening with me on the internet? This way, if my family tried to twist the story to make themselves look like the good guys, there'd already be another side of the story out there, mine. I kind of felt like a detective, making sure everyone knew the real scoop. I had this gut feeling that my parents might have also borrowed money from folks who aren't even part of our family, and those people, they have the right to know what's going on too, right? It's only fair. By sharing my story, I wasn't just standing up for myself. I was looking out for others too. Think of it like being the neighborhood watch, but for this kind of mess. My parents and my brother, they've always had each other's backs, but me, I've pretty much been on my own dealing with them. So putting everything out there for the world to see felt like the right move. It was like telling everyone, hey, this is what's been going down, and it's not cool. And about my brother trying to make me feel bad to get me to lie. That just blew my mind. I couldn't believe he thought that would actually work. But there you have it. I stood my ground and made sure everyone knew the truth, straight from me. When I decided to spill the beans online about all the drama with my family, a part of me already figured that most folks would get where I was coming from. And you know what? The comments on my post pretty much confirmed my gut feeling. So a huge shout out to everyone who showed me support. It really helped me stick to my guns and not second guess myself. Now, on to some questions that popped up a lot in the comments. First off, these relatives my parents borrowed money from, I've never met them, not even once. So it's a bit of a mystery to me why they decided to lend a hand or wallet in this case. My best guess? They're just super kind-hearted people, and my parents saw a chance and took it. Not the coolest move if you ask me. As for reaching out to these mystery helpers to ask why they gave the money, I'm not thinking that's the best move right now. Now it feels like stirring up a pot that's already boiling over. You know what I'm really hoping is that these good Samaritans have some kind of proof or paperwork that shows they lent the money to my parents with the expectation of getting it back someday. Because if they don't, then taking my parents to court might not even lead anywhere, which would be pretty disappointing for everyone involved. And about my grandparents, that's a whole other can of worms. Honestly, I'm not even sure where to start with that one. I hadn't ever really been close to any of my grandparents. My mom's parents passed away a couple of years ago, but my dad's parents are still alive. It doesn't matter though, because I have never been in touch with them, and even they considered my brother to be the better sibling. So they're just irrelevant. They were not the ones who helped me pay for college, contrary to popular belief. No, it was actually all just me. I worked through college to pay off my tuition, along with a little help from a couple of my friends and their parents. I did return all the money to everybody that I had borrowed from eventually after I got my first job, but I never asked for any help from my parents or my family. So I made it on my own, and my parents had no part to play in that. Back then, that was kind of disappointing for me, but now I can proudly say that I accomplished it all myself, and that's something I am really proud of. So I hope that answers all the questions that you guys had about me and my life and clears up everything. I don't know what's going to happen next with my parents and my brother, but whatever happens, I'm going to keep you guys in the loop. I think you folks are pretty much a part of this now. Update 2. Okay. It's been 2 weeks since my first post here, and like I said, a couple of my relatives are suing my parents for not returning their money. And thankfully, they did have proof, according to what I heard. So my parents are in big legal trouble right now, but for some reason, they are being idiots about it. And instead of focusing on their defense, they think it's a good idea to come after me and try to harass me into taking their side and admitting that whatever I said at the wedding was a huge lie, so I made it up to make them look bad. They had visited me along with my brother a couple of days ago, probably to try and intimidate, date me, or something equally ridiculous. I can understand that desire to set everything right by scaring me into telling a lie about myself because they know that they are in a pretty screwed up situation right now, and their only bet is to make me look like the bad guy. So anyway, they showed up, and I almost didn't open my door because I could see that it was them. But then my brother kept knocking for several minutes, and out of sheer annoyance, I let them in. But I told them to make it quick because I didn't want to waste my day on them. My father was pretty point blank and told me that he needed me to lie to cover up for them because they couldn't afford to pay back everybody at once and needed me to buy them some time. Obviously, now that the cat was out of the bag, it would be difficult to get it back in, but he wanted me to at least try for the sake of our family and our reputation. I found it pretty ironic that they were talking about family and stuff like that when we didn't even speak to each other for so long, and I'm pretty sure that in a real family, people at least talk to each other and don't try to manipulate and use the others to their advantage. I told them that I really didn't consider them family anymore, and they needed to stop bringing that up again and again because it was painfully obvious to me what they were trying to do. They couldn't emotionally manipulate me into taking their side on this, and they definitely were not going to try and guilt-trip me anymore. None of their mind games were going to work with me because, so far, I know what kind of people they are, and I know that they will stop at nothing to get what they want. So I wasn't falling for any of their little tricks. And when the emotional manipulation didn't work, my brother resorted to other means. By that, I mean that he tried to force me and threatened to put up dangerous posts to defend me and get me fired from my hotshot job if I didn't comply with them. It was a pretty pathetic attempt because I just told him that if he did any of that, then they could add another lawsuit to their already ongoing list of troubles because I'd also be filing for a defamation lawsuit against them. That shut him up, but my mom got all defensive and told me that I had no right to try and scare him like this, especially after everything that I had done to the family. I didn't like that because I hadn't done anything to the family. They had brought this all on themselves by lying to people and borrowing money from relatives to fund and enable that golden child. I had no part to play in any of this, and for her to make it sound like I was the one responsible for this was just wrong because I didn't make them take money from their relatives, never return it, and then come up with stupid excuses to avoid paying them back for years. I didn't raise my little brother to be an entitled man-child with no passion or goals, capable of doing literally nothing. That was all on them. So if they wanted to pat somebody on the back for that, they could do it to themselves and keep me out of it. I actually said all of this to my parents, and then I told them to get the hell out of my house because they were wasting my day off, and I had more productive and fun things to do. My brother raged at first and got all up in my face trying to intimidate me, and said that I wasn't going to get away with this, and he was going to make sure of that, which was totally hilarious to me because what was he even going to do? Throw his video game controller at me or get his 20-year-old online weirdos to cyberbully me? That really took them off, and when I told him to brush his teeth more often if he was going to get so close to people to intimidate them, he went completely red in the face, and my mom had to drag him away. But it was pretty satisfying for me to watch him struggle to hold back because I knew that he was powerless here, and so were my parents, and it felt like just a huge victory to me because after years of being targeted by them, I finally had them begging for help, but I was not going to help them. So they were going to feel exactly the way I had felt when I asked them to pay for me to go to college, and they laughed in my face. Update 3. Hey, so it's been a couple of weeks since my parents visited me, and from what I've been hearing, things haven't been going well for them. My relatives have been saying that they have been going around and telling literally everyone they meet about how they are struggling to keep up with the bills as well as paying the lawyer, and now they also have to worry about how they are going to pay these people back, especially as they are about to retire in a couple of years, and this is just coming at the wrong time, of course. The easiest solution for them would be to just make their youngest son get a real job and do something with his life so he can contribute to the household expenses, but they are not going to do that because they want to spoil him rotten, and they are succeeding at that job because he most certainly is pretty rotten on the inside. They have also been telling people that I felt bad about what I did at the wedding and how I created so much trouble for them, especially after the wonderful childhood that they have given me, and out of guilt, I had apparently offered to pay for the lawyer for them, but my parents had rejected it because they had felt very insulted by me at the wedding, and they bragged about how I wouldn't buy them out. A couple of my relatives talked to me about it and told me that while they were impressed by how mature and generous I was, they weren't sure if trying to help my parents out was the best thing to do because they weren't exactly trustworthy. I had to reassure them that my parents had been lying, and I had done no such thing as they were claiming. Anytime any of my relatives talked to me about this, I clarify to them that whatever my parents told them was a complete and total lie. Then I told them the real version of what happened, where my family approached me and started begging me to help them out by lying and taking back what I said so it could buy them some time, and then my brother tried to threaten me or whatever it is that he was trying to do. I'm still not sure, and that makes a lot more sense to them than whatever nonsense story my parents had fed them so they don't come out looking bad. It's amazing to me how they still care so much about how their relatives perceive them. They're in so much legal trouble, but they're still trying to portray me as the villain in their story, even when nobody's buying it. I guess their priorities are pretty clear. Literally nothing is more important to them than making me look bad. Update 4. Okay, so I recently learned that my parents lost all 3 cases against them, and they have to pay back the people they had borrowed money from within the next couple of months, which sucks for them, I guess, but it's great for me. I was really happy when I heard that. Of course, my relatives were the ones who told me about this, and they found out because my parents started whining almost immediately about how I had absolutely ruined them, and now they would never have any money left after they retired. Even now, they are blaming me for this instead of acknowledging and accepting that this is just a consequence of their own actions. I can't even begin to imagine the mental gymnastics that it would require to come to a conclusion like this after everything that has taken place. It's not surprising though, because I always knew that their life practically revolved around me, even though my brother was the golden child. It was always me who they wanted to put down and portray as the villain in all their stories. So I guess they're making the most of this opportunity to be the talk of the town for all the wrong reasons. Unfortunately, they don't realize that this is not a good thing, and nobody has any sympathy for them whatsoever. They just want attention, and that's it. They don't care where it comes from and for what reasons they receive it, as long as people are talking to them and about them. They just want an opportunity to whine to people about how difficult their life is because of me, and that's more evident now than ever. Update 5. So I have great news, and I can't wait to share it with you guys, and I hope that it brings as much joy to you as it did to me. Are you guys ready for it? My brother had to get a job. That's right. I actually feel like the king of the world right now because this is a day that I've been waiting for most of my adult life. The day that I would see my brother pushed into actually working instead of just sitting at home and playing games. I had to work my way through college and make my own path for myself while my brother never had to worry about any of it because he had my parents backing him up. But now it feels like the universe has brought justice to our family in the most beautiful and poetic way possible. When I was in college, I had to work as a cashier at the diner to be able to pay for stuff, and I recently learned that my brother has had to get a job as a cashier at the video game store. Because revenge is a dish best served cold. I couldn't believe it when I heard it, so I had to drive all the way to where he works. I even sacrificed my lunch for it, but it was completely worth it when I saw the look on his face as soon as I walked into the store, and I relished the opportunity to walk around and make him uncomfortable and angry. It was a petty thing to do, but boy, did I enjoy myself. Before I left, I even asked him if our parents cried on his day of work like they had on his first day of school, and he just flipped me off and told me to leave, but I just loved the sight of that, and I really don't think that this year could get any better. Now on to the next story. Story 4. I don't think I will ever forgive my sister. Last year in October, I, a 22-year-old female, was working at a nursing home in the kitchen. Both siblings of mine, a 29-year-old male and a 31-year-old female, worked there, my brother in the kitchen, my sister a nurse. I love the work. I love the residents. I had a bit of unease working with my older sister, though. We don't see eye to eye is an understatement. In her words, I'm everything wrong with my parents' life. I'm a horrible person. My mother should have let our abusive stepdad beat me straight so I'd behave better. She's told them to kick me out repeatedly, calling me a freeloader, a drug addict for smoking weed, a brat, and a leech. Never mind she's a drunk and has been since she could start drinking, even drinking and driving constantly. It was 2 weeks before Christmas, and I started having sudden extreme swelling in my abdomen with pain so bad it made me cry. I was supposed to see the doctor that day but had to work, even though I had requested that day off. I was sent home in tears with my stomach making me look heavily pregnant and the pain so bad no one could touch me. My first visit to the doctor was a bust. I was given morphine and told it was my then sent home with heavy painkillers. My brother tagged along with the trip, saying he was under the impression because of my sister that I was being dramatic and had bad cramps. He even went as far as to tell my parents to just leave me there and come back when they released me so he could get his shopping done. This didn't go over well with me, obviously. I went back to work, and the same happened. The swelling, the pain, the tears. I could barely walk. It was a pained waddle at best. But I was told by my lovely sister to suck it up and come into work, even telling me if I missed work again, I would be fired. 2 days in a row I was sent home, then told to resign until my medical issues were resolved. Even the nursing staff was worried, one of the ladies telling me I should be in the hospital and not work, as I looked 9 months pregnant with the swelling. Another doctor visit was the same results with no improvement. After I quit, my sister descended like a vulture. She started doubling down on telling my parents to kick me out, telling everyone I'm just too lazy to work now, even going as far as to tell our own parents that I don't need a doctor. I need a psychiatrist because I'm crazy. And F everything, she told me on my birthday, 5 drinks in and right in front of my parents, as I was talking about bills that I wouldn't have to worry about the bills if I actually kept a job. I never talk back. I'm the quiet one. I don't fight back. But I was done. I turned and pointed at her and said, "Don't you start. Don't you even start with me. I am tired. I am sick. Just stop this." Her eyes got as wide as silver dollars. My birthday is just before Christmas, and I haven't talked to her since. On Christmas Day, I remember passing everyone their gifts with a smile. When I got to her, I tossed it at her really hard and just said, "You." I didn't even thank her for anything. Now she does nothing but try to get me to talk. Compliments on the gift I gave, asking how I'm feeling, trying to ask our mom how I am, or asking my brother to see if I'll tell him anything. I have a stomach biopsy and endoscopy scheduled, then multiple OBGYN visits and even more tests after that. I'm refusing to tell her about any of it. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a sister. Update after 5 long months. I have a status update. About 5 or 6 months ago, I lost my job and relationship with my sister due to a mystery illness. She swore I was faking. Newsflash, I wasn't. After more tests than I can count, I have an answer, well, sort of. As it turns out, I have a very large cyst on my ovaries that is bleeding, causing even more irritation and pain. In the long run, it's a strong contender for a diagnosis as well. So no, dear sister, I don't have the magic power to inflate my stomach, cry on command, and I don't make myself puke for attention. I'm currently awaiting a doctor's visit, going over treatment and even possibly surgery. Unfortunately, my mother has told my sister everything, which she accomplished by taking my mom out on mommy-daughter days and spoiling her with more gifts than you can imagine. Unsurprisingly, I was never included. She still makes snide comments and even took her fork while we were at dinner one night, poked my stomach repeatedly, and said for everyone in God to hear, "Wow, I never thought I'd see the day your stomach doesn't look like a balloon. What changed? You don't look as fat and swollen." The look I gave her could melt a hole through a diamond, so I told her, "It's because I'm not in pain right now, you a-hole." My mom is trying to get me to be nice to her, telling me that's just how she is. She doesn't mean anything bad. She's your sister, and I didn't raise you to not get along. I told her if my sister didn't mean what she said, then she should apologize for making those comments. As of right now, she's still on my shit list. Mom is definitely climbing the list, but I have good news. I got a new job. It's well paid and low impact, plus I get 3 breaks a day and weekends off. I even have paid holidays off. I'm loving it, and although it's hard work, I'm excited to finally pick up the pieces of my life. My brother even told me I was the hardest worker they had at my old job, and unfortunately, the replacement isn't even doing half of what I could do in a day. And while I miss my residents and I still know their special orders by heart, I have never felt such relief in knowing that who I work with now don't even know my family. I can chat with them without my sister breathing on my neck or my brother shushing me for being friendly. I'm not 100% yet, and I have a long road ahead, but I'm doing it with my head held high and my best stride I can muster. Edit. I never expected for this to get the traction it did. I'm in tears, and I can't thank you guys enough for the kind words and call-outs in the comments. It makes me feel less alone, and I couldn't even begin on how much it means to me that people actually care. A little clarification, though, on a few points. My mother does believe that I'm sick. She even goes to the doctor with me and comforts me when I'm doing really, really bad. She grew up in an abusive household and really doesn't have a close relationship with her family, so she raised us to get along so we could have the relationship she never could. It's no excuse for her response, but it does mean I understand where she's coming from. Again, not an excuse for that bad response, but she does care and has been helping me out a lot. My sister can be a good person when she wants to be. When she wants to be is the catch. I still love her. She raised me when my parents had to work double shifts and long days and is the reason I still eat ramen when I'm sad, lol. She's always been mean, but now she seems to be getting meaner and she's going through bad things too. But that's no excuse to be horrible. I just hope that whatever is biting her, but let's go soon. My brother and I have always been close, and he asks me how I feel whenever I see him. When I lost my job, he bought my pets food. When I needed a ride into town and had no gas money, he let me crash at his place for the night and took me. Sure, we fight too, but we are on better terms. As I said, there's no excuse for being dismissive or downright nasty. I'm still going NC and LC when I move, as I believe it's the best choice for my mental well-being. I'm putting me first. Edit 2. Thank you guys for every message. I never expected this level of support from people. I've read all of them and cried a bit. And thank you to the people also telling me to not take this lying down. As of right now, I've already had a talk with my mom, and she agreed that my sister was out of line. She did repeat that's just how she is, but she did say that it was about time I said something to her about it, and she wasn't going to stop me. It's between me and my sister now. She's visiting in a few days, so we'll see how it goes. Although until she says something, I will be silent. As for my mom, she is no longer going into my appointments with me. She agreed to sit in the waiting room for me unless I desperately need her help. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.